We've all heard words that become so popular that just about everyone is saying them. They're in movies, on TV, and in marketing campaigns. Then one day, poof, another word takes their place in our conversations, and the once popular expression becomes, well, old hat. Popular culture is a slippery thing, lubricated in part by the slang and jargon that we use every day. But why do we use it? And who decides that one word is in and another out? Robert Leonard says that to find the answer, all you have to do is watch the movie Mean Girls. Leonard is a professor of linguistics at Hofstra University. He's also director of the graduate program in forensic linguistics and the director of the Institute for Forensic Linguistics, Threat Assessment, and Strategic Analysis at Hofstra.
Mean Girls probably has all the sociological information anybody would ever need to know about high school. There are these three girls who are mean, and they're the super popular kids. So everybody wants to be like them, at least in some way. And they are afraid of them, but they also want to imitate them. And even among the three, of course, there are always power struggles. And in the middle of some conversation, the number two girl says something about that something is so fetch, like, dog, fetch me a bone, that word. And the number one girl turns to the number two girl and says, fetch? What does fetch mean? And she says, oh, it's a slang term. It means really cool. And the number one girl says, no, it doesn't, and stop using it. And this is a really good emblem of how people use slang. They very often use slang to show that they are in a certain group.
Many people think slang is lazy, but Leonard says it's anything but. In fact, it's constantly evolving, and the in words and phrases can change quickly. He found out from his young daughter that in a matter of weeks, an expression can morph into different forms once it becomes the common lingo.
She was observing that the inner core of super popular girls, 3 or 4 girls, were saying, when something was obvious, duh. So the peripheral girls started saying, duh, exactly like that. Meanwhile, as the waves spread from the inner core to the outer circle, the inside two of them started to say, duh. Duh was now not cool. Duh was very cool. But it took time for the people on the outside to try to imitate the ones on the inside. And then they went away for a week of Easter break or something, came back, and everybody started saying, duh, but the two core girls started saying, obvi. Now, this is all in the course of 3 weeks. And it's because it's sort of like having cops have the color of the day so they can identify each other. Insider groups keep changing the keys to the kingdom and the code words.
That explains how many of the cool words come to be, but power and belonging aren't the only reasons for slang. Leonard says that humans love wordplay, and slang is an outlet for our creativity. For example, one expression that was popular at Leonard's University for a while was tile work.
Tile work meant what happens when somebody drinks too much. They wind up on the floor as tile work. So the students would joke that they would look for Joe, and they'd say, where's Joe? Oh, he's tile work. And this is irreverent and a lot of wordplay. But also notice that it encapsulates a concept that could be useful to, I guess, people who go and do that. One of the great things about novel phrases is that they encapsulate concepts. So I'm thinking of the buzzwords that we get in business so much. And innovation, it sort of encapsulates anew, no pun, the thrust of what people are really into in business. So innovation becomes the buzzword for a whole class of things.
It's not just what you say, but how you say it that makes a word acceptable. Leonard says that when you use a slang word or expression, it must be informal.
For example, what are you going to do today? Oh, I'm just going to be chilling at home. Has to be pronounced chillin'. If you say I'm going to be chilling at home, that's not slang, and people who use that slang term will laugh at you.
Sometimes jargon creeps into our everyday language. Terms such as bottom line, perp walk, and on the lam are used outside their very specialized occupations to spice up a conversation. But there's a danger there, too.
These are useful terms. Everybody does not know what they mean. I mean, bottom line used to mean something rather different in business, had to do with contracts. And When it moved into the general population, it sort of meant what was the bottom line. We all know what that means, but it doesn't necessarily mean on a contract. People like to sound like cool people, so they like to sound like cool cops. I remember an interviewer in New York who kept on using the term on the job. Caller had called in, and he seemed pretty knowledgeable about police work. So this guy, showing off how much he knew, he'd say, "Are you on the job? Are you on the job?" And the guy had no idea what he was talking about, and he said, "No, I'm not calling from work." But on the job means that you're a cop in New York, cop speak at least. So, it can backfire too, in other words.
Some people might ask why we have to make up new words these days when we have plenty of old expressions to draw from. One of these people is Leslie Bloom, author of Let's Bring Back, the Lost Language Edition. She's a word lover and thinks there's a lot of colorful slang that can be revived.
There are a few that have entered into my own vocabulary because I just think that they're so totally delightful. And I say horse feathers all the time instead of nonsense. There are so many really wonderful words for nonsense that I found, and they really sound like what they mean. So, for instance, we have flummadiddle, or gibble-gabble, or hornswoggle, or twaddle, or trillabub. I mean, these are all old guard synonyms for nonsense. And I love the word nonsense, but these are really, really fun to say. So that whole category was really fun for me.
Other words she found fascinating were the swear words and insults, and nobody did it better than the Bard.
I include a whole roster of Shakespearean insults. So there's, bastardly, bolting hutch, foul and pestilent congregation of vapors, that's used to describe one person, muddy mottled, it's wonderful. This is another great favorite of mine, filthy worsted stocking knave. So, there are quite a few very spirited ways to swear and to insult just from that source alone. And history's other more colorful orators have provided other examples of really quite splendid words as well.
Jargon is nothing new, and Bloom found a treasure trove of it on the high seas and 20th century music clubs.
A lot of the ones that I really enjoyed tended to come from maritime occupations. Like, for instance, here's an old seafaring term for a sailor himself is Jack Nasty Face, which I thought was just kind of hilarious and totally bizarre. We have chops instead of mouth, that kind of thing. Cat, a man who plays jazz. Hepcat, hotcha, hot plate, licks. Clinker is a bad note, which I love. A gas is something that's really amazing or moving. An axe is an instrument of any variety. Some professions really do lend themselves to, highly descriptive vocabulary.
Speaking of jazz words and phrases, there's one that has never fallen out of fashion, and that's the word cool. Bloom says that words come and go the same way clothing is in, then out. It serves us during a point in time, and then something else comes along to take its place. But cool is one of those words that has staying power.
It's surprising to me how many words have staying power, words and phrases. So, for instance, when I was researching the book, one of the things I really tried to do is include words that were, either so delightfully old-fashioned that they couldn't be omitted. So, for instance, like the phrase, the bee's knees. Like, people still use it a little bit. It's not entirely out of fashion, but it's just too illustrative not to include, or words that were genuinely lost. But one thing that I really came across were how many words and phrases we've been saying for generations and generations. So you have cool, and then, like, for instance, get out of the wrong side of the bed. That's been around forever. There was a version of that back in Roman times. So it's pretty incredible. And, why certain phrases have staying power while others don't, it's kind of a mystery.
On the opposite end of that spectrum are words she wishes would make an exit. For example, like as a speaking crutch. That's been around since the Valley Girl phenomenon in the 1970s. Another word is a bit newer.
Some of the words today that are totally ubiquitous that irritate me and that I wish would go away. So, for instance, it's the word curate instead of edit. It's a curated library. It's a curated collection of clues, a tightly curated book, that kind of thing. And that's one of the words, that, for instance, when somebody is doing a period drama about 2008 to 2013, they would use the word curate, and it would date us.
It's true that a lot of slang is here, then gone. However, all it takes is a movie or book that's set in the past to bring those words back.
Movies, oh my gosh. That really revolutionized MTV when it was at its height also. Instantly, everybody knew what the latest slang was. And I remember some rappers were reusing, back maybe 15 years ago, words that Humphrey Bogart gangster movie slang, like gat for guns and things like that. And they thought these things were so great that they resurrected them, and then everybody was saying it.
These days, everyone is texting and emailing, using abbreviations instead of the words themselves. Are we destined for a world of OMG and LOL instead of the colorful words and phrases we've enjoyed in the past?
People, I think, make too much of the different technological advances because when push comes to shove, nothing really takes the place of face-to-face communication, which is where human language started. There's a lot of communication by text, and supposedly it's a whole different language. I was asked once on the stand, isn't it a whole different language? I said, of course not. And they said, well, of course it is. And I said, listen, Chinese and English are a whole different language. It doesn't take you one day to learn Chinese if you're an English speaker, but it'll take you less than one day to learn how to text with all those abbreviations. They're just stand-ins for language, but I think real communication still has to happen with speech.
If you miss the old sayings and slang and want to spice up your own speech with a few expressions that might make your friends do a double take, pick up Leslie Bloom's book, Let's Bring Back, the Lost Language Edition. To learn more about forensic linguist Robert Leonard, you can put his name in the search box at hofstra.edu. For information about all of our guests, you can visit our site at viewpointsonline.net. You can find archives of past programs there and on iTunes and Stitcher. Our show is written and produced by Pat Reuter. Our production directors are Sean Waldron, Reed Pence, and Nick Hofstra. I'm Marty Peterson.
Two little tablets is all it takes to get thicker, fuller hair guaranteed. Viviscal is the #1 drug-free hair growth supplement in the U.S. It's clinically researched, loved by celebrities, and recommended by doctors. Want to try Viviscal? Every listener that calls can try it risk-free for 90 days, plus free shipping. Get thicker, fuller hair guaranteed. Call now, 800-494-9130. 800-494-9130. That's 800-494-9130.